The clock on my truck's dashboard glowed 6:02 a.m. and the morning mist still clung low to the street when I pulled into my own driveway. It should have been a peaceful moment, me sipping the last of my lukewarm coffee, ready to unload equipment for the day's work. But instead, the sound of shrill shouting cut through the quiet like a knife. "Too early. You're not supposed to be here yet. This is a violation." There she was, Karen. Pajamas tucked into rain boots, bathrobe flapping like some kind of unhinged cape, sprinting across her lawn straight at me. Her wild hair stuck out in every direction, her phone clutched tight in her fist, already recording. "You think you can sneak around before the allowed hours?" she screamed. "Not in my neighborhood. I'm calling the police right now. You'll regret this." At first, I thought it was just another one of her morning rants. Karen had made it her personal mission to enforce every ridiculous HOA bylaw as though she were judge, jury, and executioner. Last week, she left me a fine for leaving my trash bin at the curb 10 minutes past the pickup window. The week before, she threatened to report me because my porch light bulb was the wrong shade of white. But calling the cops at 6 in the morning because I parked in my own driveway? That was a new level of insanity. I climbed out of the truck slowly, hands raised in mock surrender. "Karen, I'm home. This is my house. You don't control what time I get back." Her eyes narrowed, her finger jabbing toward me like a weapon. "The HOA guidelines state that construction noise cannot begin before 7 a.m., and I know exactly what you're doing. You're planning to start early. That's illegal, and I won't allow it. The police are on their way." She mashed her phone screen and started shrieking into the speaker. "Yes, officer, come quick. We've got an aggressive trespasser threatening me on Maplewood Lane. He's refusing to leave. Hurry." I stared in disbelief. Aggressive trespasser? I lived here. My name was on the deed, my mortgage paid every month. But if Karen wanted a show, she was about to get one. What Karen didn't realize was that I wasn't coming home early from some random job. No, I had just returned from a classified overnight shift. And in the back of my truck, under a heavy tarp, sat equipment that no civilian, least of all a nosy HOA president, was supposed to see. The kind of equipment that made police stop dead in their tracks. The kind of equipment that would make Karen's smug expression vanish the second they laid eyes on it. And as her wails echoed across the neighborhood, porch lights flicking on, blinds twitching as neighbors peeked out, I couldn't help but smirk. Karen thought she was about to watch me get dragged away in cuffs for being early. She had no idea she'd just called the cops straight into a situation that would blow this neighborhood's secrets wide open. The red and blue flash of police lights hit the neighborhood before sunrise, washing across siding, mailboxes, and perfectly trimmed hedges like a storm rolling in. By then, nearly every curtain on Maplewood Lane was pulled back, every neighbor eager to watch the spectacle that Karen had orchestrated. She stood triumphantly at the end of my driveway, arms crossed, chin high, her bathrobe tied so tight it looked like she'd strangle herself with it. "They're here," she said smugly, loud enough for me and every neighbor within 3 houses to hear. "And this time, you won't talk your way out of it." 2 squad cars pulled up, crunching gravel under their tires. Out stepped 3 officers, one I recognized immediately. Sergeant Martinez, a veteran cop who had seen me more times than he probably cared to in the past year, usually thanks to Karen's complaints. He sighed, the moment he spotted me, already pinching the bridge of his nose. "Morning, Jack," he muttered. "What is it this time?" Before I could answer, Karen jumped in, her shrill voice cutting the air. "Arrest him! He's trespassing and breaking HOA rules. He arrived before the permitted time and he threatened me when I confronted him." Martinez raised an eyebrow. "Trespassing? At his own house?" Karen's eyes flicked nervously, but she pressed on, emboldened by the growing audience. "Yes. He doesn't respect community bylaws. He's violating noise ordinances. He's planning to start construction before 7 a.m., and I have the right to stop him. He's hostile, aggressive. Look at him." I stood calmly, hands tucked in my jacket pockets. "Sergeant, I came home from work early. I haven't made a single sound except when I asked her to move away from my truck. But since she called you, maybe it's time we clear this up once and for all." Martinez studied me, then tilted his head toward the tarp in the back of my truck. "What's under there?" And that was it, the moment Karen had been waiting for. She lunged forward, pointing dramatically at the bed of my truck. "Exactly. That's what I was telling you. He's hiding something, probably illegal equipment, dangerous machinery. He's always bringing suspicious things into this neighborhood. That's why I called. You need to search it right now." The other officers exchanged glances. One rested his hand casually on his holster. The neighbors gasped. Karen smirked, savoring the attention, convinced she was seconds away from my downfall. But then Martinez stepped closer, his eyes narrowing as he peeled back a corner of the tarp. The faint metallic gleam underneath caught in the morning light. His expression shifted instantly from boredom to sharp, professional focus. He yanked the tarp off completely, and the entire neighborhood seemed to gasp as one. Beneath the tarp sat gear stamped with bold government insignias, serial numbers, and a lockbox that could only be opened with biometric clearance. It wasn't construction equipment. It wasn't farming tools. It was tactical hardware, surveillance and response gear from the kind of assignments nobody ever talks about in public. Karen's smug grin evaporated like smoke in the wind. "Jack," Martinez said slowly, his tone no longer casual. "You want to tell me why you've got federal-grade hardware sitting in your driveway?" The crowd leaned in, phones raised, recording every second. Karen's mouth opened, then shut, then opened again as she realized the spotlight she had summoned was no longer shining in her favor. What she had called down on me wasn't embarrassment. It was a storm she couldn't possibly control, and she was about to freeze when she learned exactly what was inside. The days following the courtroom showdown were eerily quiet, almost as if the entire neighborhood was holding its breath. Karen had vanished from sight, no longer marching the sidewalks with her clipboard or storming up to doors with her self-proclaimed rules. But I knew better than to believe she had truly given up. The thing about people like Karen is they never surrender. They retreat, simmer, and wait for the next opportunity to strike. And when she did, she went further than anyone thought possible. One Saturday morning, before the sun had fully risen, I was awakened by flashing lights bouncing against my bedroom wall. At first I thought maybe there'd been an accident nearby, but the sharp slam of car doors and the pounding of boots against pavement told me this was something bigger. By the time I stumbled to the front door, there were at least 4 police cruisers parked along my driveway, and Karen was standing there with her arms crossed, smirking like she had personally delivered the cavalry. "There he is," she shouted, pointing at me like I was a fugitive. "Arrest him! He trespassed on private HOA property again." The lead officer looked more annoyed than convinced. He flipped open his notepad and asked Karen for specifics, but as usual, her story was riddled with contradictions. She claimed I had broken into the HOA office that morning, but when pressed for proof, she waved her arms wildly and insisted everyone knew. The officers weren't buying it, but that didn't stop Karen from demanding they drag me away in handcuffs. And that's when she made the mistake that ended her reign once and for all. She stormed into my garage, determined to prove her lies, and came face to face with what I'd been keeping hidden inside. You see, Karen thought she was about to expose me as some kind of criminal. Instead, what she found was the massive stack of evidence I'd been collecting, binders full of HOA bank records, forged receipts, and emails linking her to years of embezzlement. I'd secured them in a fireproof case, preparing for the judge's next hearing. The officers followed her inside and froze when they saw it too. "Ma'am," one of them said sternly, "why exactly do you know what's in his private garage?" Karen stammered, her face pale as the realization set in. She had walked straight into her own trap, and the police weren't about to let it slide. Within minutes, they called in detectives, and what was supposed to be my arrest turned into hers. The entire neighborhood gathered on the sidewalks as Karen was led out of my garage in handcuffs, sputtering and shrieking that it was all a setup. But no one was fooled anymore. The crowd didn't cheer, but there was a heavy silence that spoke volumes. People exchanged looks of relief, some even wiping tears from their eyes, because they knew the nightmare was finally ending. At the final court hearing, the judge didn't even try to hide his disdain. He laid out the evidence plainly. Karen had siphoned thousands of dollars from HOA funds into her personal accounts, used intimidation to silence dissenters, and abused law enforcement resources to target innocent homeowners. The verdict was swift, guilty on multiple counts. She was stripped of her position, fined into financial ruin, and sentenced to time behind bars. For the first time in years, the HOA actually belonged to the homeowners. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt a weight lift off my chest that I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. Neighbors came up to me, shaking my hand, thanking me for standing up when everyone else was too afraid. And though I never asked for it, I became something of a symbol in the community, a reminder that one person's persistence could topple even the most tyrannical bully. As for Karen, the last time I saw her, she was sitting in the back of a police car, her smugness replaced with sheer disbelief. She had spent years thinking she could control everyone around her, but in the end, her downfall came not from my words or actions, but from her own arrogance. She called the police to arrest me for being early, and instead, she revealed the very crimes that destroyed her. And that, I suppose, is the cruel poetry of it all. She wanted a spectacle, and she got one. Only this time, the entire neighborhood and the world saw the truth play out live, and there was no escaping it.